footballification doesn't apply there in a party political sense. So I am not comfortable admiring a politician. But when I interviewed Keir Starmer at some length on stage, so you don't quite get the intimacy that you do necessarily in a closed studio environment. And I just thought he was a stand-up guy. Whether or not that's going to make him Prime Minister, whether or not that even makes him a good leader of the Labour Party, I don't think today is the day to tell you, or even whether I have a firm conclusion about that. But I just thought, particularly towards the end of the interview, and at the point where he talked about the things he was most proud of in his legal career, I just thought, yeah, all right. I mean, they might eat you alive, but you are a good man. And that, of course, makes him the polar opposite of Boris Johnson, who allowed the Sunday Times to publish a story at the weekend claiming that he despises Keir Starmer. He despises him for being a member of some sort of metropolitan elite who's out of touch with the British people. A man who went to Eton, was married to an Islington lawyer, lived in Islington with an Islington lawyer that he repeatedly cheated on, is sitting in judgment on Keir Starmer, a man whose biggest offence was buying a field so that his disabled mother could keep donkeys in it. That's the best they've ever been able to find on it. It's incredible, right? But here we are. Starmer accused of piling pressure on police as cornered Labour leader vows he will quit if fined. MPs say it's a cynical ploy to influence outcome of investigation. That's insulting the police. That's insulting the readers of their own newspaper. It's insulting Keir Starmer, although that goes with the territory. And it is, of course, admitting, without thinking that their own readers are bright enough to realise it, that when they publish front page after front page after front page after front page demanding that Durham police investigate Keir Starmer, they did so in full knowledge or belief that this would actually influence Durham police. And arguably it did. And inarguably they are investigating it. And irrefutably, the claim was that if he was found to have offended, he would have to resign. And he's agreed with them. And they're still crying. He has agreed with them, and they're still crying. Can you make sense of that for me? 0345 6060 973. But actually, one of those lovely mornings where, despite the rather excessive length of my introduction, it is concluding with a very straightforward question: is what do you make? Remarkable political gambit, but it's only remarkable because we live in such corrupted times. A politician says, if I'm found to have broken the law, I'll resign. That shouldn't even be news. That should be dog bites mat, right? But it's not, is it? In Boris Johnson's Brexit Britain, a politician saying, if the police discover that I've broken the law, I'll resign. In Boris Johnson's Brexit Britain, that's the scoop. Good grief.
LBC.
Hey, Harry. Hello, mate. Should I back the underdog or risk a few extra quid on the favourite?
Listen, everyone knows that I like a bet, but if there's one thing I've learned over the years, it's this. No matter what the amount, no matter whether you're backing a player or buying a racehorse, your best bet is never to spend more than you can afford. That's why BetVictor's new affordability measures are specially designed to help you avoid ever spending beyond your means.
Listen to Harry and please gamble responsibly. 18 plus, be gamble aware.
My name's Chris Hadfield. I'm an astronaut. I've been lucky enough to go around the world 2,600 odd times. Seeing the entire world, it gives you a perspective of the shared nature of humanity itself. We need to recognize that nothing stays the same. Change isn't just inevitable, it's necessary. And technology enables us to do things that we just can't naturally do. To be able to measure the changes to the surface of the planet from orbit, to be able to effortlessly communicate around the world, that opens up so many possibilities. And when you can fold the impossible into the reality of normal life right now, I think that's what progress is.
When technology enables progress, ESET is here to protect it. ESET Digital Security. Protected.
At Lidl, we're big on a summer of quality for all. So it's time to get those Barbies out with 2 Vermondo vegan burgers just $1.59, 2 Seabass fillets with butter for $3.69, and 6 British Big Dog hot dog sausages just $2.99. Now that's big on quality and always Lidl on price. Subject to availability, selected stores, excludes NI. Hey. You wanna a great new car, we got thousands galore. Got a store, just the dealers, you'll deliver to your door. Every car includes a warranty. That's just what we do, and we guarantee you'll own it. We'll give your money back to you.
Whether you're buying online or through our trusted dealers, feel good your way with Hey Car. T's and C's apply.
James O'Brien on LBC. Call 0345 6060973.
It is 21 minutes after 10, and just for one day, we're just having a little chinwag, having a chat, chewing the fat about Keir Starmer's decision to, and it shouldn't be news, it shouldn't be remarkable, it shouldn't even be surprising, but a senior British politician has said he will resign from his post if he's found to have broken the law by a police investigation. Good grief. It wasn't that long ago, was it, where even suggesting that a senior British politician wouldn't resign from their post if they were found to have broken the law would have had eyebrows heading heavenwards at a rate of knots. But here we are. 0345 6060973 is the number you need. What do you make of it all? Ben's in Hellzone. Ben, what have you got?
Well, look, I think there's 2 points. The first one, if I may, Starmer. Look, he's a demonstrable man of integrity, but he was going to have to do this whatever because that's the bar he set. So he's done the right thing, and it's important to prove to everybody that not all politicians are the same. So, I'm a Labour member. I'm supportive of Starmer's direction himself with the Labour Party. But if he gets hit with that FPN, he has to go. It's a shame, but that's just how it is.
He could. I mean, I'm told that he was of this view pretty much from the start, but he is a collegiate leader and wanted to canvass opinion from shadow cabinet members as well. And it was far from unanimous that this was an open and shut case. I think him on a personal level, I'm crikey, I don't know him well, but you sometimes get a handle on someone if an interview goes well. I think he would have found it unconscionable, actually, on a personal level. But on a political level, there would have been people encouraging him to style it out. And by pointing at the other lot and saying, what's the point of us acting with integrity and honesty, where when the opposition actually finds it ridiculous, finds honesty and integrity, so they will go to Balmoral to lie to the Queen, boss. Why the hell are you going to fall on your sword over a tiny transgression like this?
I think you have to look at why Keir Starmer went into politics. This is a guy who doesn't need the money. He doesn't particularly need the profile. He's a high-profile lawyer. Yet rumoured to be the inspiration for one of the great romantic characters of the modern age, Mark Darcy and Bridget Jones. This is a guy who's in politics for the right reasons. And if he can't meet his own standards, then he's not interested.
I hadn't heard that before. What about if it is a gamble, but as I say, he's factored it in, and even if it does mean he walks away from the leadership of the Labour Party, he would consider that a price worth paying for the retention, if you like, of his good name. That's what we're talking about here. What then?
Well, look, I think the interesting bit about this is Johnson and his media outriders. So historically, Johnson allowed
outriders, mate. They're in the car with him now.
Well, something that would turn up.
Harry Cole's in the glove compartment.
To help him get through the next 48 hours. That has always been Boris Johnson's sole strategy. How can I survive the next 48 hours? But usually, and this is the key difference here, that thing is organic. It's outside his control, and he can ride the event. But here, this is something that has been very specifically engineered. Things a bit like they're putting down road.
Yes.
But the problem is, when you put down road, you know what happens, don't you, James? You run out of road.
Yes, I wish I was as optimistic as you, but you know the definition of a pessimist is an optimist with experience, and they'd never run out of road, mate. They never get punished. The actual client journalist, we just look back at phone hacking and things like that, and just pick yourselves up, dust ourselves down, and start all over again. The actual individuals never run out of road. The only question is whether they continue to take their readers with them. I marvel at somebody either watching it on television, listening it on the radio, or reading it in their newspaper, hearing the same voice, reading the same writer tell them in the space of 24 hours, it's absolutely outrageous, he's got to go. The Sun had the headline, the end of the Keir show. And then 24 hours later, you've got right-wing journalists queuing up to claim that he's putting undue pressure on Durham police by agreeing with the right-wing journalists. It's incredible.
I think, James, look, will they face consequences? The outriders will. The inriders, no. But they might run out of road for Johnson. And all I'd say to them is, Boris Johnson is a man that has only ever looked after himself. I don't know why they do it. I don't know what they're getting out of it. And I don't know what they think they will get out of it in the end. He betrays everybody in the end. Boris Johnson betrays absolutely anybody and everybody.
Even the client journalists, ultimately, and they just sit there lapping it up and then regurgitating it for their readers. But hey, we've been over this ground a lot. I'm interested in what people think of the Keir Starmer intervention. I don't agree with Ben that it was an absolute open and shut case. I think for Keir Starmer on a personal level it probably was, but politics is not always, the political is not always the personal. The number you need, 03456060973. This is the quote I was looking for from The Crucible. When Proctor is wrestling with his conscience over whether to confess to witchcraft and thereby save himself from the gallows. In other words, Keir Starmer could have essentially undertaken some sort of contortion or acrobatics and not offered to resign, or indeed resigned in the event of being found guilty. Here's the line I was looking for: because it is my name, because I cannot have another in my life, because I lie and sign myself to lies, because I am not worth the dust on the feet of them that hang. How may I live without my name? I have given you my soul, leave me my name. So telling the truth becomes more important than survival. There we are. And something that Boris Johnson and his cohorts simply can't compute it. Why has Keir Starmer done it? Because he thinks that telling the truth, he thinks that the law is more important than anything that could be filed under ambition. And they just don't get that, because their man, Boris Johnson, is the polar opposite. Nothing is more important to Boris Johnson than ambition. He's trashed the country to promote himself. He wrote 2 columns about Brexit because he had to work out which one was best suited to his own cause. Absolutely everything the man has ever done is designed solely and exclusively to improve his own position, which means when the cheerleaders see absolutely incontrovertible evidence of the polar opposite in place, they don't know what to do. Which is mildly amusing until you remember that it's the country that's at stake. Alan's in Balham. Alan, what would you like to say?
Hi there, James. I listened to everything you were saying earlier. It's great interest. I was driving, actually. So I heard everything. And there's a number of things I want to say, but obviously we're limited to time. Firstly, I'm a Tory to the core. I've never voted anything else but Conservative in my life, and I'm 57 years of age. Boris Johnson, to me, when he first came into power, I actually admired the man. I thought, this is what we need. This is what the country needs. However, I now do not have those feelings. I think the man lacks a moral compass. I think he has no credibility as a leader. But then I look at Starmer.
Yeah.
And I admire what he's done. And I agree with everything you've said, the sentiments, etc. I totally agree. But my issue with Starmer goes back to serving in a shadow cabinet under Jeremy Corbyn.
Yeah.
Jeremy Corbyn, to me, was the greatest threat this country has faced since Oswald Mosley. The man supported terrorism, he was anti-Semophobic. You could go on about Corbyn forever.
I'm familiar with the charge sheet. Yeah. I mean, some of it is disputable. What do you think he should have done instead?
Well, I mean, again, serving in a shadow cabinet. He is a Labour Party man, I respect that, but there were many Labour Party core members to the core who said, we will stay in the Labour Party, but we will not support this man as a potential future Prime Minister.
There weren't that many.
And that's what... there were.
There weren't really. They set up their own party, and Starmer's defence, and I'm not running distraction for him, but Starmer's defence would be, I mean, I'll draw a slim parallel with it, in that I've had to share space with people I found repellent over the years, and some people suggested that if I was a man of principle, I'd have walked away, but that would have left the field clear. Surely you're better off if a drunk has got the steering wheel and you can't, and you have a choice. Do I stay in the car and try and apply the brakes and try and change the direction of travel, or do I get out of the car and let them crash it with everybody in it? What do you do? That's all I'm saying. And that's just the dilemma I'm putting before you.
I hear that, and I admire what he's done. I think what he has done now, he set the boundaries. Basically, if he is found guilty, which I hope he isn't, because I don't think genuinely Starmer. I don't think you can compare what he did in Durham to what was going on there in number 10.
Of course you can't. Not unless you're on the payroll of Rupert Murdoch or the Daily Mail, mate, and then you'll pretend that there's a parallel, but you know there isn't. Even the people writing it know there isn't.
Now, bear in mind, I've only ever voted Conservative, right? And in September 2020, my mother passed away of cancer, with cancer. My brother and myself couldn't even carry our mother's coffin into the chapel because of restrictions and COVID restrictions. So that's fine, but that's where I then thought, no, I've had enough Johnson. This is where I got to a point where I thought, look, when I look at what was going on at number 10, and quite clearly it was, yeah, and I've got Tory friends who, no, this is great man, great this, great that. Sorry, I genuinely believe, when I look back at Margaret Thatcher and leaders of her calibre, and there were Labour leaders equally who had credibility, I look back at people like that and I think politics in this country has got to be at an all-time low, where lying, conniving, and basically self-interest comes before everything else.
So
now, I would think Ukraine is probably the greatest asset that's happened to Boris Johnson, because it's taken all the heat off him for the time being.
It has, and oddly, the
parties and cases.
No, I'm interrupting you for a reason, not just for my usual inability not to interrupt people. It is 10:32, and I am late for the news. So, in a nutshell, Starmer yesterday sought to address the narrative you described. He said we are not all the same. He doesn't like this. I mean, the most appalling politicians want everybody to believe that everyone's appalling, because that way their own appallingness doesn't matter. I sense you agree with it. You think he is different. He said, I am different. I am not. We are not all the same.
Look, briefly, like I said, he has gone up in my estimation, but I still hold that against him.
No, you've got a case of long Corbyn, as I believe they call it, although it's usually applied perhaps to people who would have been more likely to vote Labour historically. Thank you, Alan. Very honest of you, and that's kind of the theme of today, isn't it? This is what honesty in politics looks like. Why do you think so many prominent pundits and politicians actually don't know what it is? They can't recognise it anymore.